Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm joined by our chief sports writer, Ryder. I'm going to hold a bit of a Q&A ahead of Newcastle's game against Aston Villa tomorrow night. So if you have any questions for Lee, do pop them in the comments and we'll get through the best of them. Lee, I guess the first place to start is tomorrow night a must-win for Newcastle United.
Yeah, I mean, we've probably been saying that about the last 5 or 6 games, to be totally honest. I was doing a bit of research the other day, and this is the second lowest tally we've been on in the Premier League after 27 games. So there's no doubt about it. We are in trouble, whatever people say, or it's bad luck or COVID or whatever. We are in serious trouble, regardless of all that. So they need 3 points. That's stating the obvious. It's whether they can get them or not. They've struggled in games they should have won in 2021. The games they have won, Southampton, they were hanging on with 9 men, and Everton, the game, it was a very tense game until the end when they got a couple of late goals. So they need a convincing display and a victory.
We're in Steve Bruce's press conference today. How was that? How was the head coach?
Yeah, it was obviously not as dramatic as the week before when he was sort of laying down the law on journalists and things like that. It was more just straight batting questions. Obviously, he was asked about his future again. He said you would have to speak to Mike Ashley or the powers that be, which is a great answer, really, because we know Mike Ashley doesn't talk, and we know the powers that be haven't spoken for a long time. So it was the most pointless answer ever, really, from the head coach. So yeah, there was, he got asked the questions the fans would expect him to be asked, and realistically, they're never going to be happy with the answers, with the way the team are playing and where the team are on the table.
We'll dive into a few of the questions then. Daniel Fox asks, do you think Bruce will see out the season?
Unless they slip into that relegation zone and they're under a severe amount of pressure to go down, I think he will. If Newcastle, even if they finish 4th bottom and scrape to safety, as long as they're on course to stay up, I think he will be there, unless there's an alarming slide. If they lose the next 3 or 4 games, then they have genuinely got a decision to make. But would they have then left it too late? That's the big question. It was 10 games under McLaren. It was 8 games when Alan Shearer came in to replace Joe Kinnear in 2009. So, look, the history tells them that change of manager hasn't worked twice. But realistically, if this team can't beat Aston Villa tomorrow night, then they are going to be in serious trouble.
I read there was a report in one of the nationals today that one of the reasons the hierarchy aren't considering replacing the manager is, as you say, history suggests it doesn't really work. Do you think that's a sensible approach to take if you are Mike Ashley and Lee Charnley?
No, for me it's not, because if you've got water pouring out your house, or you've got a hole in your roof letting water in, then you've got to get, unless you want more damage, then you need to get those things attended to. Obviously, managers, always ask for time and space to get results. He's had that. We're nearly 2 seasons in. Newcastle are still relegation fodder. So look, you've got to then look who's available, and is Mike Ashley the type of guy to suddenly splash out £5-6 million on a contract like he did with Rafa Benitez? At the moment, with the way the club's finances are, that just doesn't seem likely. So the alternative would be, Steve Bruce steps aside. Steps up, Simon Connolly, whatever, and Graham Jones would come in as head coach, and obviously you would then need an assistant or two. So I think they have got some options, but at the moment they seem ready to stick with the man they've got.
Lots of questions about selection tomorrow. And Stephen asks here, why haven't we seen the likes of Anderson or Matty Longstaff? Why hasn't he been recalled, considering the injuries we have? You mentioned Sorensen, but obviously he's out on loan in the Dutch second division, and he's done quite well. A few goals scored. But what's your thought on the first two mentioned, Elly?
Yeah, well, I did ask him that at the press conference today specifically about Anderson, because having seen him play in the under-23s quite a lot, and the formation they're playing at the moment with that deep lying forward, that is actually ideal for Elly Anderson. I know he's only 18, but it's the type of position where he can pick the ball up there and have the chance to, run at defences and cause a few problems. I did ask him that. There is a story coming up on the Chronicle website. Should be probably about after this broadcast, but basically he said that he wanted to go with experience rather than bringing in younger players. Now, whether he's sold me a dummy with that one, and he has got that up his sleeve, we'll wait and see. But yeah, does he risk upsetting senior players to give one of the younger kids a chance? But for me, if called upon, I think Elly Anderson wouldn't let anybody down.
He had a brilliant game against Sunderland by all accounts. The goal that Adam Wilson scored was created by Anderson. A lovely turn. He shrugged one of the defenders off. It was a lovely assist. Well, it started the move. If you catch it on social media, you can see it there. What about Dwight Gayle? I mean, we all know what Steve Bruce said after the West Brom game about why it didn't change system. But I think everybody's clamouring for either Gayle or Carroll to start up front against Villa tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why. It would probably mean that if they play Carroll, they would have to play a different way, more direct, play it with strengths, which have been saying for weeks. But he hasn't seemed to be tempted to do that so far. Dwight Gayle got half an hour or so at West Brom, and for me, didn't really grasp the chance. Didn't get great service, but also didn't grasp the chance with the touches he had. And Newcastle, as I said in the match report, they could have played till midnight on Sunday and not scored the way they were playing. It was such a lack of ambition going in that final third. Where the press box is situated at the Hawthorns, we had a great view of that final third, and you were just looking at the opposition goalkeeper. He could have picked up a newspaper and had a cigar. Basically, it was one of them. But really, you go into this game against Aston Villa, and they're going to have to continue to create the chances they did in the first half against West Brom, and B, show a bit of conviction.
Question here about Ryan Fraser. Does he have to play? Why do we need Shelvey, Hayden, Hendrick at the same time? That's a question from Gareth. And as luck would have it, when we're going live, someone is knocking at my door. So I'm going to leave you, Lee, with that question. I'll be back in 2 minutes. That's just the curse of going live. So yeah, do you think Ryan Fraser has to play? Why do we need Shelvey, Hayden, and Hendrick at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Ryan Fraser put in 14 crosses at the weekend against West Brom. Only 2 of them were accurate. For me, he hasn't been a success since he signed. He has had some injury problems, but at the red card, Sheffield United, since he come back in the team, he hasn't done a great deal. Yeah, he did set the goal up against Wolves. That was probably the best thing he's done this year. But then you look at, as you say, Shelvey, Hayden, and Hendrick all in at the same time. It's a strange one. I mean, for whatever the reason is, Sean Longstaff was left out. Jeff Hendrick got the red card against Southampton. Could have cost Newcastle could be in the relegation zone now because of that. But look, for me, he probably has to play Ryan Fraser because he is one of the senior players. But has he got the stomach for the fight? He didn't want to do it with Bournemouth last season. End up leaving them when they needed him. Was well documented at the time, and now after a very average season so far for Newcastle, he has to deliver in these 11 games.
Question here from Steve. He says, do you think the players have lost the belief that they can move up the table? They seem to be void of any confidence, are too worried about poor teams to risk losing to play safe.
Well, confidence it's absolutely huge in football, and you need it to just get the momentum and be able to win games and have good runs and put 2 or 3 wins together, which is exactly what Newcastle need. But at the minute, they're frightened to death of taking the game to West Brom. Never mind Aston Villa. So yeah, it is very worrying. But if they can turn the corner and get that win, then they'll be on 30 points, and with 10 games to go, you would think they were in a decent position. They'd have the platform to finish the job, but it depends on the other teams now as well. Fulham away to Man City, or Fulham at home to Man City, sorry, and Brighton travel to Southampton in a South Coast derby. So I'm sure the minute the final whistle goes, people will be starting to think about the next couple of days' fixtures, and for Newcastle, they need results to go for them, and obviously need to put points on the board themselves.
Do Newcastle have the advantage, you think, by playing on the Friday before the other 2 teams do?
I mean, if they win, it's great. It's great because then there's a 4-point gap, and it then means that both Brighton and Fulham are looking at a scenario where they've got to win 1 and draw 1 and hope Newcastle lose 2. And at this stage of the season, that can become a big ask. But if Newcastle lose it and get sucked in that relegation zone, and on Monday morning, if they're in that relegation zone, then I think the cries for a change in the dugout will be louder than they've ever been this season. This is a key game for Steve Bruce now, and he's had the backing of the people above him, probably since December time, after they got knocked out of the League Cup, when they had an opportunity to really push on in that competition. But this is really now, it's crunch time, and he needs the win. He really does.
Yeah, definitely, because you don't want to lose and then head to Brighton the week after. I know Steve Bruce was asked in his press conference this morning if the club realises the situation is serious, and he says, I think we've understood that for a while now. Look, we're not alone. We all don't want to be down there, but we haven't won enough matches not to. So it's key we win enough matches to ensure we aren't down there. So he seemingly does understand the situation. And surely, though, it's like he says, it's all about getting results now. I guess how long can they go on not winning games is probably the key question.
Yeah, I mean, there's one scenario that will keep it chugging along, and that is if they get a draw against Aston Villa and the other 2 lose, then they're still out of the relegation zone, and it then moves on for another week as Newcastle travel to Brighton, which is that is going to be some occasion, but not in the way we'd like to think about it being a really good game and some exhibition football. It's just going to be one ugly scrap, and you hope that realistically Newcastle don't go down there in the bottom 3, because when you get that, I've been through it a couple of times in the Premier League when Newcastle getting relegated, and when you get that sinking feeling, it really changes things. Do you know what I mean? And everything starts going against you, and the heat really is on. So if the manager and the players feel under pressure now, if they slip in that bottom 3, then it's a different scenario altogether.
Certainly is. And I think you've said in previous podcasts, we definitely don't want it to go down to the final day because you're not back in Newcastle to do what would be needed. We've got Steve ask, how many points do you think will keep us up? He says normally it's 40 plus, but it looks like being maybe a lower tally this year.
I think Roy Hodgson said 38 a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of agreed with that at the time. But the way Fulham keep picking up points, then you just don't know, because if Fulham continue doing what they're doing, and Brighton can hold on in games, because they have been ahead in games. Brighton, they've got a different problem in Newcastle. They can't hold on, and I don't know. I would have said 38 points a couple of weeks ago. It's almost anyone's guess the way Fulham are playing, because they've thrown the gauntlet down. They were 10 points behind. It's amazing to think that it was 10 points the gap 3 or 4 weeks ago, and now it's 1, and it's going to be. It could go right down the wire. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, certainly could get nervous. We'll finish off with a few questions then. We've got one here from Sarah, who says, we have a strength of Carroll. Why isn't Bruce playing 2 wingers? Richie is a great crosser, and Fraser also. Get those crosses in, even stick a centre half up front. She says Bruce seems to only have one formation, sadly.
Yeah, it's like, obviously they have changed formation slightly since the new coach come in, and Graham Jones has a certain way of playing. In terms of getting those crosses in, as I say, Ryan Fraser, 14 crosses the other day, only 2 of them seem to reach their intended target. It's not just that, though, because he might argue, look, I'm getting the ball in, you've got to attack it. You've got to, I can't pull a string and you're going to be where I want you. You've got to time your run, etc., etc. So it's a big problem, the whole fluidity of the team, especially in the final third.
We've got Aaron Watson asking you, Lee, what is Newcastle's best central defence? Is it Jamal Lascelles and Federico Fernandez, or would you go with Lascelles and Kieran Clark?
Well, in all truth, the last couple of games, Clark and Lascelles seem to be gelling again, and they know each other very well. Although Fernandez, you have to say, he's never let Newcastle down since he got here. He's and he's also the voice of experience. Steve Bruce did mention experience in his press conference, and I do wonder if, with Fernandez fit, that was a little hint that he could possibly be involved against Aston Villa. Whether they go back to 5 at the back again, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think if they had as much choice and as much problems in selection at the other end of the pitch, then they'd be fine.
They would. We definitely are missing Alan Wilson. Final question then, and we've kind of covered it, but I'll ask it. This one from Dean. He says, do you think the Longstaffs deserve a chance, and who would you go with up top?
Ooh, good question. Obviously on the Longstaffs, they'll be, whether this is part of Steve Bruce's management tactics or not, where he's just got them to a point where they're the champing at the bit to get back in, and they're really going to take a game by the scruff of the neck when they do get selected again. We'll have to wait and see. But again, he pointed to experience, which suggests Shelvey and Hayden. Who would I go with up top? Well, for me, it wouldn't be Willock in the deep line position. I don't think that really worked against West Brom. Yeah, you'd have to probably go for probably Dwight Gayle, and this is a chance that he has to take. But if you are going to change tactics altogether, then you got to get the big man Andy Carroll up there. And I said it weeks ago. I said, look, just get back to basics, because obviously that seems to be where Newcastle are. They need to be in that position where they obviously can't carry out the tactics. It's complicating things. Just get back to basics. Get Andy Carroll up there and lump it and get the points. That's probably going to be. That's one way of doing it, but their pride probably won't allow them to do it. That's so the coach and staff's pride, by the way.
Yeah. Tomorrow then, Villa, Lee. Newcastle got a good record of Villa at home. I think that it's 11 games that they've gone without losing to Villa at St James's Park in the Premier League. They've not got Jack Grealish, which is a big boost for Newcastle. Obviously, we don't want to see anyone injured or out, but it's good news for Newcastle that he is, because he's their star man. What do you think the score is going to be?
Oh, that's a good question. Given the way Newcastle have been playing, but look, I done the prediction panel what I do in a chronicle, and I predicted Newcastle get a narrow win. So you're looking at a 1-0 type of game where they hang on for it. Although I do wonder, is my heart ruling my head a little bit with that, because the way Newcastle are playing, against Wolves was a perfect example. They go 1-0 up and then they crumble towards the end. It was very difficult, but I'd love to see them get a 1-0 win, which they've done a few times actually in this fixture. He's just churned out a result and got the 3 points. And it would be perfect to get that going into that big game at Brighton next weekend.
Certainly. It would be great to see them get 3 points and just get themselves away from the relegation zone. Well, Lee, we appreciate you joining us. If you head over to chroniclelive.co.uk, you can read all these stuff from the press conference and all the build-up tomorrow as well. And he'll be at St James's Park bringing you live coverage via our live blog.